We're going to go over to the lesson. So today, as you see, the topic is ser and estar. Both these verbs in Spanish mean to be. And so it's really hard for learners of Spanish to be able to distinguish and know when to use ser and when to use estar. And so the way I like to teach to my students is to try to make a distinction in your mind between traits or characteristics versus states, like states of being. Okay, and we're going to see that here with some examples. So I'm gonna move. Also, some teachers use these, like these different mnemonic devices, really, to try to remember things. So they have doctor for ser and place for estar to help you remember that when you're talking about the date, you're going to use ser. So hoy es, that's ser, right? Hoy es miércoles. Or if you're talking about an occupation, yo soy profe, I am a professor. Or characteristics, soy guapo, I'm handsome, right? Or soy feo, I'm ugly. Time, we always use ser. Ya son las 8 de la noche. It is 8 o'clock at night. Origin, the O there is so talking about like yo soy de Arizona, I am from Arizona. And then we have relationship, and I'm trying to remember what my prime example for relationship is. Like él es mi padre, he is my father, something like that, right? And then for a start, we have place, so position. Like el libro está en la mesa, the book is on the table, or location. Tucson está en Arizona. Here's a great thing with talking about location. Use estar. One of the things that gets taught constantly, and it's wrong, is people get taught that you use ser for permanent things and estar for temporary things, and that is so wrong. I mean, it works sometimes, but it's not a accurate blanket statement, because look at location. I say Tucson está en Arizona. Tucson is in Arizona. That's pretty permanent, but I'm using estar with it. And then we have action. We use estar like yo estoy hablando, I am talking. Condition, está bien, it's well, or está mal, it's bad. And then emotion, like yo estoy cansado, I am tired, or él está triste, he's sad, or él está feliz, he's happy, etc. Right? So some people like to use these things like doctor and place, but again, the underlying principle that I try to get students to remember is this difference between states and traits. Okay, so to kind of show that, I've got some sentences here. So on the left we have ones with ser, on the right we have verbs with estar, and we can see like mi esposa es muy cariñosa. My wife is very loving, right? Or she's very kind. So here I'm talking about a characteristic of her. She, if I'm describing her to someone else, I would say es muy cariñosa, along with a lot of other wonderful adjectives I could use to describe her. On the other side, I have estás muy cariñoso hoy. Oh, you're being very loving. You're being very kind today. So in this one, I'm looking just at your state of being in the moment. Estás cariñoso. And I'm not really talking about a general characteristic. It could be a general characteristic too, but in the situation, of the conversation, the general characteristic isn't important. What's important is how you're acting today. And so I'm talking about how you're acting very kind. So then in the second row, I've got tu marido es elegante, your husband or your spouse is elegant. And then on the right we have estás muy elegante en ese vestido, you are quite elegant in that dress, you look elegant in that dress. So again, we're talking about just a general characteristic of someone versus a specific context where I'm talking about a state of being. Wow, in that dress you look very elegant. And then we have mi mujer es guapa versus mi mujer está guapa con su vestido. So my wife is beautiful as a general characteristic versus my wife looks beautiful in that dress. And so we see here the distinction between just state characteristics and states. Jay Brooks, glad you could join, and I'm glad that I'm talking about something that maybe can help you out. So another thing that students get really hung up on is they get told like, estar is more for things that aren't permanent. So if I say mi mujer está guapa con su vestido, like my wife looks great, she looks beautiful in that dress, students start thinking, well, because I used estar, that must mean that she's not always that way. Like she's usually ugly, but now she looks beautiful because she put this dress on. And that is also a misconception, common misconception among learners of Spanish. If I say to my wife, está guapa con su vestido, I am making no comment about what her usual characteristic is. I'm just only commenting on her state of being at that time. And you can think about it this way: can anyone like have a characteristic of being beautiful if they're never beautiful in the moment? Right? And the answer obviously is no. In order to have a general characteristic, you need to like repeatedly demonstrate that characteristic, right? So, mi mujer está guapa con su vestido is one of these moments that leads into me being able to say that mi mujer es guapa generally, describing her to someone who's maybe never seen her before. Okay? So, from there, we'll go over here and see that sometimes, so we can have ser o estar with an adjective, and it can change a little bit the meaning, at least in how we would translate it in English, right? So we have an adjective like vivo, alive, es vivo, o están vivos, and whether we use ser or estar, it can mean two different things. Like estar vivo, like the second one there means they are alive, they're not dead, where es vivo is a characteristic of someone being lively, being animated, that kind of thing. And then we have aburrido, which means bored or boring, right? And so we have mi profesor es aburrido. That's a characteristic of the professor. My professor is boring. He's a boring professor. And then the second one says estábamos aburridos mientras nos enseñaba el profe. We were bored while the profe was teaching us. So we have the difference there. If we use ser, we're talking about a characteristic of someone being boring. And then if we use estar, we're talking about someone being bored. Again, state of being, which is that underlying principle, state versus trait, right? Then listo, which means ready, right? Estás listo? Are you ready? But if I use ser with it, eres una mujer muy lista. You are a very smart woman. So listo with ser can mean smart. Right? So, going back to the basics again, fundamentally, ser is for traits, characteristics, and estar is for states of being, emotions, those kinds of things. Okay? So, putting that into context, you guys can kind of on your own think about this. You're walking on the street in New York City and you witness this old woman here robbing a bank. And you have to describe her to the police. So you can start thinking of like what things would you use to describe her to the police? And you can start thinking, you would obviously talk about a lot of her like physical characteristics, right? You need to just give a good physical description to the police about what this woman looks like. And so for those, we're talking about characteristics, right? So we'd need to use ser. Es vieja, she's old. Es baja, maybe she's short, right? Es delgada, she's skinny, these types of things. But you're also going to want to comment on her state at the same time. And an old woman robbing a bank? Yes, Robo Joe. Yes. It's crazy, huh? Está muy tranquila por haber robado un banco. Globe says, yeah, she looks very calm, right, for having just robbed the bank. And so we might talk about that to the police, and we might say, está muy tranquila, like she's really calm. She was really calm while she did it. RoboJoe says it would describe that it's hilarious for a woman to rob a bank. Yeah. And so we'll talk about her maybe her state of mind. Está loca. Maybe she went crazy. Está loca. Or estaba enojada. She was mad. Maybe she was really mad when she was robbing. Like when we talk about all these things that would talk about her state of being, and would use estar for that. Okay. If you guys don't like the old lady robbing a bank thing, we can think about Breaking Bad. Let's say you were describing the characters of Breaking Bad to someone who'd never seen the show before, and so talking about how the people look or their characteristics, their personality, we would use a ser, right? But sometimes we'd want to comment on their moods, on their states, and would use a start for that, right? Like Jesse Pinkman siempre está enojado, right? He's always mad, maybe, or those kinds of things. What the hell does that mean? I translated a Robo Joe. The old lady is calm for having robbed the bank. Okay. So anyways, you guys can start thinking about that if you've taken Spanish. For Robo Joe, who maybe hasn't taken a Spanish class before, this might be too much, but we'll get you into there. We have ser and estar, and these two verbs again both mean to be, so we need to know when to use them. And like I said, we have traits with ser and states for estar, and that's the underlying principle, that if you can grasp that, then as you learn and go, and if you need to make a distinction and you have to decide in the moment, that is is a lot less interesting when you're looking at the same PowerPoint for a second time. I'm sorry, Jay Brooks, I'm sorry. But anyways, if you can grasp that concept, that'll help you make